Good evening. Welcome. This is Tenant Thursdays. I'm Rashanah Baldwin. I'm joined here today with Conor Malloy. Did I say it wrong? Maui.
Hi, Rashanah. Conor Malloy.
Malloy.
Yeah, it's tricky.
I got. Oh, sorry. It's Thursday.
Yeah. I've got a last name first. It's all over the place. Yeah.
Malloy with Rentervention Project Director and also with Lawyers Committee for Better Housing.
Thanks for talking with me.
How are you doing?
Doing well for a Thursday.
So I got a chance to check out Rentervention, and every Thursday you all do Tenant Thursdays, giving tenant rights. For those who don't know, Rentervention is a free service created by Lawyers Trust Fund of Illinois and Lawyers Committee for Better Housing that helps Chicago renters who are facing troubles with repairs, evictions, and security deposits. I love the fact that you all have the tagline that says Chicago's tenant's best friend. That's what Renty is. So can you tell us a little bit about Rentervention? What does it do? What is this free service, and how is it helping Chicago tenants?
Sure. So Rentervention, as you mentioned, it's a free service for Chicago tenants. And since it's a chatbot, it's something that is just up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah, you don't have to call 9 to 5 or be put on hold. You can chat with Renty. And if you're inside of Chicago and you're dealing with a landlord-tenant issue, like conditions in your home aren't what you expect them to be, or you're facing an eviction, things like that, Renty can help educate you a little bit, see what your options may be, and sometimes even plug you in with a lawyer to be able to get more help. So we've seen Renty help a whole heck of a lot of people ever since we went live.
And the website is rentervention.com, and you can also text hi by texting 866-7-RENTER, and Renty the robot pops up and starts chatting with you.
Yeah, it's hard to get him to shut up.
This is 24 hours?
24 hours a day you can chat with them. And in fact, that's when we see a lot of people, for whatever reason, if they're just night owls or otherwise getting off a shift and come home and maybe the AC isn't working, people are talking with Renty, at the wee hours of the morning too. So all hours of the day.
What are some of the basic services that Rentervention, if I typed in to Renty the robot, and you just mentioned about your AC not working, I did got a chance to check it out. What are some of the basic services that Rentervention is offering when you reach out to Renty the robot?
Yeah, so let's say for something like that, right? For a conditions issue, where a lot of people might think that if they're experiencing an issue in their unit, like the window's broken or they see mold, that they're making a trip to Home Depot to pick some stuff up to fix it. In a lot of instances, that might be the landlord's responsibility to take care of it. But a lot of times it's not enough, let's say, for you to reach out to your landlord and to say, hey, this is wrong or that's wrong. What you should be looking at it as a legal issue. And so Renty can help you create a letter or otherwise some sort of a document to send to your landlord to get your landlord to take certain action, or else there might be legal repercussions. And so that's the important thing, is to take something that is just a regular everyday issue that you might be experiencing and be able to add that extra oomph to it so you can get your landlord to take some sort of an action.
And again, this is a free resource provided by you all. You also provide some legal services. Individuals are able to talk to an attorney if it needs to go that far. What can you give an example of a tenant having to talk to an attorney, and what did that look like?
Sure. So another thing that's happened since COVID, and especially since June, is about mid-June, Chicago passed a COVID-19 ordinance, which changed the law a lot on how people, may get evicted or, other things. But one of the things that happens is when somebody comes in, if they need, let's say their landlord gave them a notice that they failed to pay rent, you can go on to Rentervention, create a document that says to your landlord, hey, there's this new law, and I get it that you're telling me I got to pay rent within 5 days or pay my balance in 5 days, but I need some extra time to be able to talk to you and work out a plan with you. And that triggers a little bit of extra time. But what it also does is it gives you an invitation to our virtual clinic where you can come in and be able to talk with an attorney. And maybe the attorney calls the landlord. Maybe you're not doing it. Or maybe the attorney is coaching you to be able to use certain buzzwords or be able to talk to your landlord in a constructive way to find some sort of a resolution. So that's probably like a really good example of what we've seen over the last several weeks as far as attorney client help inside of Rentervention.
And that's great. That's great assistance. Oftentimes people don't have that specific language and they need it from the attorney, and you're all providing that for free. Can you tell me who is Rentervention who is able to use Rentervention? Do you have to live in the city of Chicago? Is there any restrictions?
So primarily, at least right now, the people that are able to use Rentervention, or at least use it to a lot of the capacity that's there for, if you're living in a property in Chicago that is a RLTO, so that's the special law that deals with a lot of units in Chicago. If you're in one of these properties and it's not subsidized, so you're not in public housing or getting Section 8, any sort of assistance from the government with your rent, then that's when Rentervention really shines. If you are, though, we'll be able to connect you with the different legal aid agencies or other services that do help people that are in there, because the law changes and you don't want to get that wrong.
So every Thursday you all do Tenant Thursdays here at Rentervention, and we want to spend 6 minutes in the 3 neighborhoods that have been using Rentervention most lately because of COVID-19, and that is Logan Square, Uptown, and Inglewood. Can we jump to Uptown first and see what some of the cases have been like as it related to COVID and assistance?
Yeah, and just to put it out there for Tenant Thursdays, my colleague Morgan Schumann, this is my first one. My colleague Morgan Schumann usually does Tenant Thursdays and does a great job just educating and taking questions. It's fantastic. So I hope I can do Tenant Thursdays justice. But the other part of Rentervention, just when you're chatting with it, is a lot of it's anonymous. So sometimes when I might be short on details with what people do with Rentervention, it's good and bad, right? But I think it's protecting the user at the end of the day, if I do fall short on it. But if we look up Uptown, 60640, generally, what we've seen over the last several months is the predominant issue that people are concerned about are just anything COVID related. Can my landlord do this during COVID? Do I have this right during COVID? These are the types of questions that come through, and sort of related with that, because it is also an economic crisis, are trying to connect with the resources where people can get rental assistance through a lot of the services that have come through with COVID, or other services like being able to get assistance with your paying your utilities, things like that.
So in Uptown, I saw that the numbers of over 27,000 was tested, 110 cases. It's a population of 58,000. What else have been some of the COVID-related renter issues that you all are seeing from this neighborhood?
So just generally speaking, again, people are concerned about social distancing, right? So questions, can my landlord enter my unit? Or how does that work? Or my landlord said that they need to perform maintenance inside of my unit. Can they do that? And just wherever Rentervention can give guidance, the law has changed a little bit, and it used to be more of a, landlords are more prohibited within the first month or so after the COVID orders started coming through, late March. So a lot of it is best practices on what to do when your landlord wants to bring in contractors or maybe do an inspection or even show the unit, can they do that? So being able to help people with those types of issues, that's really, really helpful.
Can you talk about what have been the eviction rates there in Uptown?
Sure. So one of the projects with the organization I'm with, Lawyers Committee for Better Housing, is dealing with collecting information about eviction filings in general. And so they have an eviction portal, eviction.lcbh.org, where people can see some of the statistics surrounding eviction filings. And while we've seen a big decline over the last several years with eviction filings. One of the trickier things that we're all trying to figure out right now is what's going to happen once the moratorium begins to lift, or several of the moratoriums that are governing rental units. So even though it's taken a big dip, even in this year, eviction filings are way down because people are still allowed to file evictions in some instances. There's not a blanket stop, but that's one of the big things that we're concerned with, is that even though there's been a downward trend over the last several years, we might see something because uptown and a lot of these areas, especially in the north, rents are going through the roof, and landlords are increasing rent across the board in a lot of these places and pricing people out.
So when someone who experienced COVID-19 income loss, what do you all coach them through as it relates to talking to their landlord once they lose their income due to COVID?
Mm-hmm. So one of the really popular programs that's going on right now is the Illinois Housing Development Authority has a grant available where you can get $5,000 to pay down back rent if you owe it. But let's say you apply for the grant and your rent was $2,000 a month and you just failed to pay August, right? What the grant does is it applies that other $3,000 going forward. So that could be really helpful to a lot of people to make sure that they're stabilized, and just really takes the pressure off of them to focus on other things, because school's starting and there's a lot of people to think about. Not necessarily, okay, now I got to get through another month, and it always feels like you're treading water. So what we're able to do is not only help people figure out if they're eligible for that, but some people need a little extra help. And so we can plug people in with, it's not the attorneys at Lawyers Committee for Better Housing, but we have a supportive services staff with social workers, and they can help you fill out that application and also answer some questions around that as well, and really just hold your hand through the whole process.
And I noticed you said that the evictions have been low in Uptown. Anything else we should know as it relates to Uptown and the cases that you've seen as it relates to COVID-19 for renters' rights and evictions?
Yeah, that's a big thing. And what that does, though, with people coming and having the primary COVID issues, it really helps us to build out the content, right? Because we want to keep giving people up-to-date information. Some things might not be as popular, and we're not going to pay as much attention to it and with our limited resources. So if people are hungry for COVID-related information, we're going to make great strides to be able to give people the best information that they can try to find, and curate that for people. That's pretty big.
Oftentimes I see people panic because of COVID-19 related to every situation. Even with their rent, they freak out, and Rentervention is helping to guide individuals not to walk away. I know from just other experiences, people will walk away. Tenants will walk away. Even homeless will walk away. And you all are sitting there holding their hands, at least essentially giving them the right resources. And like you said, if needed, talking to their landlords. The attorneys are talking to their landlords. So Rentervention is apparently seems like it's a good tool to have. I know also the next neighborhood, Logan Square, as we continue our 6 minutes in different neighborhoods, like we're taking a virtual tour around these neighborhoods. This is another neighborhood of the area code 60647 that you all saw a lot of outreach from. This is a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, Latinx, in contrast to Uptown, which is a predominantly white neighborhood. Yeah. There's also low eviction filings there. What are some of the cases you all have been receiving as it relates to COVID-19 and renters reaching out to you all?
Well, one of the big things too for Rentervention that I haven't mentioned is the bot's also available in Spanish. And so that's going to be helpful with a lot of the content that we put out there, especially for neighborhoods, like Logan Square, or, we might find some, Pilsen in Hispanic neighborhoods. So be able to make sure that Rennie is friendly to be able to talk the language that Rennie needs to talk, and be able to find people where they're at. So whereas Logan Square is a bigger population than Uptown, People are still really concerned with the issues relating to COVID, but beyond that, they're really concerned about what we consider sort of eviction or pre-eviction issues. So this is where they might not be behind on rent, solely behind on rent. This is where we might be creeping into where the landlord is probably getting a little fed up and is now taking certain action against the tenant, where they're giving them an eviction notice. So that everything's starting to turn a little bit, and it's starting to make its way into court.
You mentioned the moratoriums. Where are we at right now with the latest moratorium that it just expired August 22nd?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a technical thing. The governor can only do these emergency orders for so many days at a time. And so that's why we see it where it gets continually renewed. But the new deadline is September 22nd. And while I can't guarantee anything, sorry, my lighting is a little funny. While I can't guarantee anything, this might look like it's the last stay that we'll see on the eviction moratorium. So September 22nd is when a lot of landlords will be able to rightly file cases, and tenants may find themselves in court at that point.
And again, those tenants can come to Rentervention for some type of assistance, guidance, and you all are continuing to share the resources that's readily available as it becomes available.
Yeah, and our big push right now, though, is because things can move very, very quickly and get out of hand. And people, again, have so many stressors in their lives, especially with COVID, that we've now made it much, much easier and much more streamlined for tenants to come in and maybe not fuss around chatting with Rennie as much. We're trying to get them into the virtual clinic to be able to talk with an attorney as soon as they can. So if you've received a 5-day notice or otherwise haven't paid your rent and you need additional help, you're going to find it where an attorney is just going to be a few chats away inside of Rentervention.
What makes a Rentervention different from any other renter services or free resources or even legal resources?
So a lot of the legal resources out there, when you're doing research, you got to crack a book, right? And you got to try to be able to learn the vocabulary. So if you do a Google search, you might find something for 5-day notice. Some people refer to it as as a notice to quit. There's a whole lot of different ways that people go about this. But we try to take it in a conversational way where we're not looking for somebody to go to a couple years of law school and brush up on how they're going to approach an attorney and start talking the talk. We want to be able to use plain language and curate that information where you're not hunting through it and trying to get that. So you let us know a specific thing that's going on. We'll try to give you some specific information right back. And I think that's one of the big difference. And it's automated. So a lot of services out there, ring, ring, maybe you get the voicemail, maybe you're on hold for 20, 30 minutes.
Exactly.
And that's just not going to happen with Rennie.
So your turnaround is quicker, is more real time, is not a delay, and that's good to know. And again, that is a good thing that, like you said, you all do have Rennie the robot who is responding right away. And we continue to see a lot of other services that are delayed, and you do have to do research. Again, as we move on to the next zip code of Inglewood, a very well-known community of mine, which is where I am from. For those who are experiencing or just experiencing it, what is the first step, again, that they should do with their landlord if they just lost their job, happening right in real time? What is the first step?
The first step, and I get it, that, and I've talked with a lot of tenants, during my time being a housing lawyer, and I get it that it can be scary. It can be, people can get paralyzed, right, by trying to even think these things through. You don't know where to go next. So being able to talk with your landlord in a constructive way, right? And you don't have to figure out everything right away. So just open up the communication, see if your landlord's willing to work things out, just reach out to them and, okay, this happened. Yeah, is there anything that we can do to work it out, right? You don't have to start scribbling things down. And once you get that information, that makes it a lot better too when you approach an attorney, because then we can better understand, okay, the landlord is going to work with you, or the landlord isn't picking up your calls. And now we know how to approach the situation because we're now gauging the temperature. So communication is going to be key if it's there. I used to be a divorce attorney too, and I can tell you, so the communication sometimes, it can be a very professional relationship between a landlord and tenant. It can also be a very personal relationship.
Absolutely. As we move on to the next community, we visit Inglewood, which I just mentioned, one of my communities in which I am a native. We're seeing higher eviction rates there. It's a predominantly Black neighborhood. 8,500 was tested, 715 cases. Population is roughly around 24,000. What if some of the experiences or calls or outreach that you are receiving from residents in Inglewood as relates to renters?
And this is kind of a different one than the other two neighborhoods as well in what people are coming to Rentervention for. It's one of our traditional services that we offer dealing with conditions issues. So while people may still be interested in COVID issues and eviction concerns, people are still coming because they've got, the lock on their door is broken and they need to know what to do to get the landlord to take care of it. Or in some instances, maybe the landlord shut off an essential service, like, water, just running water, or even hot water, electricity, heat, or unfortunately air conditioning isn't covered yet for some reason in the city of Chicago. But, a lot of these essential services are where people are coming for that kind of help.
Can you, as a tenant, withhold rent? As we would talk about the condition issues, if, like you said, it's leaking water and it created a hole in the ceiling or from the water, can a tenant rightfully hold the rent? And what does that look like if they do?
So there's a few options for tenants when they're experiencing the conditions issues. And sometimes, right, when people have a certain relationship with their landlord, sure, you shoot them a text, let them know what's going on. If they're good for it, they're going to send somebody over the next day and take care of business. Some people have a different relationship with their landlord, maybe because they know them, over the last several years, they know what it takes to light a fire under them. And usually there's about 3 options that are generally followed when somebody's experiencing a condition issue. They can withhold rent, like you mentioned. That one's a little bit trickier because some people think when you withhold rent that you just withhold all of it. So you owe $2,000 a month. I'm going to withhold rent until you go do what you're supposed to do. And that's really not the way to go about it, because what you have to believe at that point is, let's say like what you were just describing, where water's coming through the ceiling and there's a hole and there's some mold and things. You still have a roof over your head. You still have other services. So you can't say that apartment has no value, because that's what you're saying if you hold all of it.
Right.
So if you do one of these withholding letters, what's a really good thing is Rentervention also wants to plug you in with an attorney, because as attorneys, we've had a lot of these cases. We can kind of assign dollar amounts to say, okay, maybe out of that $2,000, you should withhold $250 a month, things like that. And what that says is you're just going to keep doing it until they fix the issue. Beyond that, when people are experiencing these conditions issues, and this is really important to remember, is a lot of times it won't go until the next month. So right now, if I'm experiencing an issue, I don't withhold all the money from the prior month and just don't pay my landlord. Or even if it happened on the 2nd, you really don't do it. You have to wait till the next month to do this kind of stuff. The other things that people usually do is sometimes if things get really bad, is to tell the landlord, hey, if you don't fix this within the next 14 days, I'm going to end my lease. It's over. I'm done with it. This isn't my first rodeo, and we got to end this. And then the last one is repairing and deduct. So your landlord has 14 days to take certain action. If not, you're going to hire somebody to come to the unit and get it fixed. And you're going to deduct that from your rent. And that's another right that you have. But you have to do these things. You have to do it in writing with your landlord. That's what the law says. And a lot of times you have to prove that your landlord got the notice as well. And this is a big thing that Rentervention does, is because not only is it going to create that letter for you, which would look similar to a letter that I would even write for somebody, but you also have the option to automatically send that letter via regular and certified mail, return receipt requested, to your landlord for free using Rentervention. So no trips to the post office. You know, you're not going to have to mess around with all that stuff. It automatically gets taken care of.
When should people overall start asking for help? Renters, of course, specifically, when is the best time to ask for help? And is it a phone call? Is it directly through text, or do they come to you all first?
This is a lawyer answer. It depends, right? So, yeah, everybody's got different personalities. Some people might be less confrontational and might want an advocate. You know, you want a champion to be able to communicate with your landlord. So those people are probably going to be a bit earlier, you know, talking to somebody. You have other people that are do-it-yourselfers, right? You know, they're the kind of person that they go and they buy a kit to build a piece of furniture at their home, and they're putting that thing together by themselves. So, you know, God love you, put that thing together. And they're going to try to take things as far as they can. So, you know, but coming to Rentervention, learning some of your options and learning about the law a little bit before you have that conversation, because, you know, you talk with some landlords out there and they have unrealistic expectations, in the same way you talk to some tenants and they have unrealistic expectations. And to be able to ground everybody and have a fruitful conversation is really where it's important. So, yeah, but as soon as possible, you know, just, it's a free service. Like any lick of trouble, just rentervention.com.
That is a great advice. And I think it's also great that, again, it is free. And tenants can come to you all for the assistance and get their real-time support and help. Anything else you want to add about Rentervention and the great work you all are doing to try to help renters stay in their homes?
Yeah, and, you know, just in case anybody else has any questions that's watching as well, but, you know, beyond that, I want to say what's really, really important is the staff at Lawyers Committee for Better Housing that staffs the virtual clinic. There, you know, we have people waiting to help. You know, so we can bring in a generous amount of people to be able to help out. Beyond that, we have a lot of attorneys around Chicago providing pro bono services, dozens and dozens of attorneys that are willing to help people out and have that conversation with the landlord, have that 20-minute conversation with the tenant. And, you know, just finally though, you know, the clock is ticking with that IDA assistance, the Illinois Housing Development Authority. Technically speaking, the cutoff is tomorrow at noon. And so if people want help with that application to come to Rentervention, we can get you connected with one of our supportive services people, and they'll be able to walk you through that application. And we also have the ability, because we're a community partner with IDA, that we can also extend the time period on an application, you know, since it's running out tomorrow. And that's going to be a huge value to a lot of people, because sometimes you got to get documents together and do all these things and get your ducks in a row. Absolutely.
And if anyone has questions, they can go to rentervention.com, post on the Facebook page to reach out to you all. This is Tenant Thursdays, Conor Malloy, the Rentervention Project Director, Lawyers Committee for Better Housing. You all are doing great work. I want to say thank you so much for participating in Tenant Thursdays and spending 6 minutes across the city of Chicago and Logan Square, Inglewood, as well as Uptown. Thank you so much, Conor.
We'll do it again. We got a lot more neighborhoods to talk about.
Absolutely. And I look forward to hearing about the great work that you all will do to help everyone.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.